Welcome to the Femsplainers. I'm Danielle Crittenden.
And I'm Christina Hoff-Summers.
And we're joined in the studio with Ella Ryder. Hi, Ella.
Hi, Danielle.
Sober October for Danielle. Danielle has become no fun at all.
Your personality is suppressed a little, and you're...
I'm trying to still be fun, but I've got to say, okay, no alcohol, okay, no cheating. If I cheat, I will reveal it, but I have not cheated. And I got to say, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling well rested. I feel sharper. Probably I'm less funny, but I'm definitely sharper.
You're radiant.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think I think I've lost a tiny bit of that bloating weight. So I'm feeling pretty good. They say, I've been sort of studying this, they say that in the first week when you cut all booze out of your life, especially if you are known to indulge a little in it, that your body goes into a kind of, I don't want to say shock because it's a happy shock. It starts producing dopamine to make up for this radical sudden loss of alcohol. And so they call this, you go into this happy mood that they call a pink cloud. And I think I'm in that. Like I wake up in the morning and I feel like one of those Disney princesses. I want to sing and rush to the windows and throw open the drapes and sing to birds. And
are you having delusions?
I don't know. Delirium tremens? No, I'm not having those because I'm sans booze. But anyway, I just want to let everybody, listeners, if you want to let us know, write to us.
And let us know. So out of solidarity and friendship, I'm not drinking.
Right, you've got a La Croix. We've both got La Croix waters.
But I have to have a vice, and I've always had some. I've smoked.
Yep.
I've taken alcohol, occasionally pharmaceuticals, and now nothing. And I don't like it. I need a vice.
So you don't feel, how long have you, I'm touched, Christina, that you're doing this in solidarity. How long have you gone without alcohol?
About an hour and a half.
You're not in the pink cloud moment yet.
No, it's been a few days.
Yeah?
Yes. And I don't know. I think it's, I don't miss it that much, but we're going to a reception tonight.
Right after the show.
So we'll see how that goes.
That will be a test. That will be a test.
But you know what I find is that I like to have something in my hand. And if I have, right now, I've got La Croix.
Yep.
And that keeps you busy.
Yeah, it's something in your hand, but it's definitely no offense to the makers of this. I mean, we appreciate that it's flavored water with no calories. Not a sponsor. That wasn't an ad, but it does get a little boring. But anyway, I'm gonna power through this. We had, for our top of the show, we always like to talk about some of the articles and things we found. This week, a listener sent us a funny story which ties into the theme of Sober October. This was from Carl. And he said, "Isn't Danielle always worried that millennials aren't drinking enough or having enough sex?" I don't know. So I wouldn't describe it as a worry, Carl, but okay. Maybe they're just doing things in reverse. They have sex and then start drinking once nature has taken its course. And so he sent a story from Market Watch, which was headlined, "This might be why millennials are drinking more. Hint, they're short and loud." And the first line is, "Your kids really might be driving you to drink." And somebody from Constellation Brands, their chief financial officer, acknowledged during an interview that Constellation makes Corona beer and Robert Mondavi wine, among other brands, has noticed that while Gen Z consumers are drinking less, there's been an uptick in alcohol consumption by millennials. That led an analyst to note, "When you said the millennials are drinking more, I'm like, because they have kids." And then
that reminds me, like my stepson Tamler was at Disneyland, and he wanted a drink, and he went to a Disneyland, attendant and said, "Sir, is there a bar somewhere?" And he said, "Sir, this is Disneyland. There are no drinks here. This is a family park." And Tamler said, "I know it's a family park. That's why I need a drink."
Exactly. Well, according to the CFO, he said, Well, I think that's exactly the answer. What we don't know, though, is will we see the same thing with Gen Z as they age? Will life get more stressful for them and they drink a letter more? But it's
you know what? They
too
probably,
early to tell.
They just don't know how much alcohol can insulate you from life's arrows.
Well, unfortunately, that's what's so great about it.
I know. I'm saying they don't know it.
We talked last week about needing to drink in playgroup, but it's a phenomenon among middle-aged women that we're kind of drinking more and drinking more wine. And I was thinking that maybe a midlife crisis for women, whereas men get sports cars and divorce, we just hit the bottle. We just slump into our wine.
Our Chardonnay. Well, I want to do something that's fun and, besides drinking sparkling water and not eating.
I could work on some mean mocktails this
that
month.
Could be fun.
I could
But can you put a little, I don't know, Adderall? I do take
that.
Adderall.
Would make you. That would not calm you down. That would jump. That would.
But I've taken it, and now it doesn't do anything. I don't need it anymore. I mean, I have to take it because I've been taking it, but.
Do you really? You're on Adderall?
Not right now. I take a little bit every morning.
Oh, okay.
Just not because I have ADHD, just because I need it to help to focus.
Christina reveals her Adderall. You realize that's like speed. We're putting a generation of children on speed.
Yeah, but I think it's good for adults. It's different physiology.
Okay.
No, I think I like legal drugs. Because you know what we could do? We could smoke pot.
I have to say I've never been a marijuana person.
No,
I don't like laughing at nothing and then eating chips. The good thing about not doing wine is you do lose the weight. I mean, if you gave up smoking, imagine poor smokers who give up smoking and start to gain weight. At least at least dropping alcohol, we can lose weight.
Well, I still have Nicorette. Well, that's all I have.
Nicorette addict. Okay, last week we talked about my kind of softness for Elizabeth Warren, and then you said you were a Yang gang.
I like Yang, and and my sister who's staying with me loves Bernie. Now he's in trouble, but I heard he's coming back
with his heart problems.
But he's better. His wife said he's recovering quickly, and that's very good. But no, not Elizabeth Warren. Okay, I even like Kamala Harris better.
Okay, I was, as you know, I've liked her because I think she's, I like her civility. I'm not wedded to her. I just kind of like her as a person.
And do you like the government programs that will probably take the nation into debts such as we've never seen? I mean, it's already dangerously high, but it's going to be out of control.
You mean unlike a Republican who has run up the biggest debt?
Yeah, well,
in the history of time. I think she will be more like one of those Depression-era housewives. She'll be
maybe she'll be like the Swedes.
She'll clean up our debt. We don't know that she won't clean up our debt. But anyway, I'm not. This is a nonpartisan podcast. I am not making any
nonpartisan. Pro-Wang. No, just kidding.
But there was an article, and this goes to her human side. Ella, I pulled this for this week, and I thought, how can you not just like this woman as a broad when I read this article? So, Ella, what did it say?
So the headline is, "She completely objectified me. Husband of 2020 candidate Elizabeth Warren jokes about how his relationship with the senator began." So the article is all about the beginning of their love story. They've been married for, I think, over 40 years.
Yeah. And it's a second marriage, too. So this is, yeah. But
it's a second marriage. I want to hear from the first husband. Has he written a book?
Not yet.
Is he going to release a tape?
Not yet.
The sex tape is out there somewhere.
But I don't know. I found this very...
Yeah, she says she fell in love. Elizabeth Warren fell in love with her husband after first seeing him in shorts because of his good-looking legs, which made her go all in. And he joked that she had completely objectified him. But it was touching. It was all about how they're still in love and their marriage has been an adventure. And
have you seen his photograph?
No.
Oh. Look at the picture.
That is so mean?
I'm just telling you objectively.
After this touching story and Elizabeth
touching. It was
showing
focus
she has
grouped.
womanly blood flowing through her veins and being attracted
Not
to
when
his
you
calves.
see. Well,
Hard to imagine.
maybe
her
I
acting like that.
Maybe I just saw a bad picture.
Okay, well, to your point, so we are now being carried among many other places, the Ricochet Network, which is a more conservative network. We're with some more conservative podcasts, and I noticed. I think this is the second podcast or third podcast we've posted on the Ricochet site, and there were 3 comments actually, but I'm only going to read 2 of them. That were really mad at me for saying anything nice about Elizabeth Warren. And one was from a man named Patrick, and he said, Christina, you'll probably agree with this. He doesn't, sorry, Christina is showing me a picture of Mr., what's his last name? It's not Warren. I think that was her.
Oh, they have different names, of course.
Well, no, but she's taken the name, I believe, from her first husband. She just kept it as
But she married him. That's a statement.
He doesn't look...
Okay, go on.
Okay, from Patrick at Ricochet said, Elizabeth Warren is an annoying scold. If she gets the Dem nominations, Dems will lose even more male votes. Also, I am disappointed you do not recognize the damage socialism will do to our country. 100 million 20th century deaths due to socialism. Teach me to avoid any person pushing that camel's nose under the tent.
I kind of agree with him.
She's not going to bring...
Look, here's a picture of her.
Soviet Union communism.
Now, she looks cute.
Okay, she's pretty. She looks definitely like a school teacher, even in her youth.
I think she looks cute, and I think that hairstyle suits her. Anyway, never mind.
Our listeners can't see the photos.
I know.
So he thinks she's going to bring back Soviet-style communism, and Joe says, "So one of you kind of likes Elizabeth Warren. Do you consider yourself center-right? In what way?"
I'm a self-hating Democrat.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I'm a recovering Republican.
Yeah, and that's why we get along. But I don't hate myself that much to fall for her.
Well, I just like a woman admitting physical attraction for a man, and that's one of the things that she fell for him.
All right, well, we'll have to see his calves. Do you have a picture of his calves?
No, I don't think the Washington Post posted a picture of his calves. But, the next time they're at a rally, you know what we're all going to be doing?
It's like
looking at
goggling
his
his calves.
All right. Last thing before we bring our guest, and I'll tell you about our guest because it's going to be great. Christina, this is one you pulled from the British Spectator. It's part of our In Mansplaining News, Views of a Mansplainer. He complains, he's written a column saying, what do men really want? A man with a beautiful house. And the writer is aptly named Cosmo Landsman. He's basically saying it's not about having a big penis, but a big house. That's all women, at least in England, want. So Landsman writes, so is the idea that women will love you for who you are simply a romantic myth? No. Women will love you for who you are. They just won't marry you for who you are. They won't have babies with you for who you are unless you have a big, beautiful house. And his research or data for this is he goes to an ex-girlfriend. This is what we call, British ways of amassing data. He went to an ex-girlfriend and years ago, he says, rejected my proposal of marriage, claimed at the time it was because she just didn't want to, but eventually conceded that, yes, my housing situation was a major factor. Quote, women want the security of being with a man who has substantial property, she said. I guess that's not a euphemism either. Big tracts of land. It's something hardwired into us.
Well, here's what I don't understand. First of all, when I was dating and younger, and nobody had a house because you were young. So that is odd. I mean, I suppose he's talking about older women. But even as an older woman, I think if I went to someone's house and it was beautifully appointed, I would think he might be gay.
Yes, or like the Henry Higgins problem.
That would be then
the bachelor. I think that's a problem. A lot of men, they're not getting married or thinking about it till their late 30s now. And then they develop these, beautiful man caves, but they have the same Henry Higgins problem of
unless they are architects. Men who are architects have good taste and their houses are beautiful.
It's usually a steer.
A steer?
Like men's and architects' houses tend to be that sort of super
austere.
Yeah,
too modern.
Too sharp edges,
cold,
and
I don't like that. And so I would be worried that I couldn't impose my aesthetic because he had such strong and rigid opinions. So that would be, really a danger zone because I love to decorate.
Yeah.
And
you'd have to bring in what do we call your style of decoration?
Parisian
Parisian whorehouse. Christina has cushions and lamps with fringes on them, and it's very romantic. Pink lights.
Yes,
it's very girly.
Bohemian chic, or
it would not fit
shabby.
In with some Mies van der Rohe, stark.
And my late husband Fred just didn't really have any opinions. If he lived the way he wanted to, it would just be a complete mayhem and trash everywhere. When I met him, his house was frightening.
Well, he was also an academic.
Yeah. So he didn't care what I did. But once I went a little too far and painted the whole downstairs area of a condo we were living in Brooklyn. I painted it. I thought it was, it was pink.
Not blush.
I had a
Not
different
rose.
color. And he just said, I guess I like it. And then my grandmother came in and said, you've painted the whole house pink. Your Auntie Eliza, your Aunt Elvira painted a house pink and no man would come near her. So I don't know. So I haven't painted. I do have a pink door now.
You do. But no, it's pretty. But I think... this man is. I mean, he cites, of course, the most classic example from literature that we.
Oh, Elizabeth Bennet.
Yes, and Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice.
When did you change your mind about Mr. Darcy? I believe it must date from seeing his beautiful grounds at Pemberley.
That's right. No, I think this is maybe, as you point out, this is a problem of. Older dating and I mean it's true, it's a stereotype that women want someone of means, and as he points out, he says he'll put up with some short men with bad breath if they have they're not so short when they stand on their big house. But I think unless you are running with the sons of oligarchs, I think you're gonna sort of romantic to share that barefoot in the park experience of building your life and house, apartment, whatever, together. And I think there is this danger of a man who has his whole house set up and not really a lot of room for you in it. I remember a bachelor friend of ours, a good friend of my husband's, and that time he collected records and CDs, like very heavily into music. So he had shelves and shelves.
Oh, I
of music.
hate that look.
But
with the CD
and the CDs, but he was, he had the whole living room wired for the best possible sound. He knew like where in the living room you should
speakers.
Sit.
Remember?
Right. Where if you sit in this chair, you'll. And one day he was complaining that he wasn't married. David said to him, "Well, you realize if you were to be serious about a girl, she'd come into your apartment," and this man said yes, and she'd come and sit on your chair or walk around the apartment. He said yes. He said, then she would touch one of your records. And he went, she can't touch my records. I think that's the problem. So I'd watch for that. But anyway, let's talk about our guest today, because this is a great topic, especially for right now. So we're going to talk about conservative women today, conservative women in politics, conservative women and why they're supporting Trump, despite his views on women. And our guest is Amanda Carpenter, who many of our listeners will recognize as a regular contributor to CNN. But she has impeccable conservative credentials. She was a columnist for the Washington Times. She was a congressional correspondent for Human Events. She worked at townhall.com as its national political reporter, all very conservative sites. And then she, during the election, the 2016 election, she worked with Ted Cruz as his speechwriter and I think strategist. And then in 2018, she came out with a book called Gaslighting America, Why We Love It When Trump Lies to Us, and has been very, very down on Trump, not least because it was suspected that he, and we'll get her for sure to talk about this, planted an article in the National Enquirer suggesting with no basis at all that she was having an affair with Ted Cruz.
She knows that he planted it?
Well, we think so. We'll get her to tell the story, but we want to talk to her about conservative women and feminism. There's a whole lot that we want to discuss with her, and she's just a lively person anyway. She's a great woman. So
well, let's bring her in.
Let's bring her in. Amanda, welcome to the Femsplainers.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. So we are fascinated by the enduring manly appeal of Donald Trump to conservative women.
And I mean, I need to see more women who don't get a paycheck from him or don't have the last name Trump out there defending him in public before I fully even believe that's a huge phenomenon.
Well, one of the interesting statistics that came out early on, it's the most, I guess, cited statistic, which is that 52 exit polls showed at the time 52% of white women voted for Trump.
Mm-hmm. And that's something I've been fascinated by. The exit polls were 53%, like you said. And then I saw other firms like Pew put that down to 47%. So Trump beat Hillary Clinton with white women by 2 points. 45 to 47%.
Right. And that was because they decided, like Pew, that exit polls are incredibly unreliable because the people who will actually talk to an exit pollster are not the ones who are necessarily representative.
And if you're a Trump person, you're a Trump person.
So it's true that a much lower percent, not a much lower, but a 48% of they say women ended up voting for Trump.
Just white women.
White women.
Yes.
Right.
That's a
big key. And the college educated and younger women did not. He was not popular amongst them. But let's go back to we mentioned. I want to just get any bias, Amanda, out of the way right now. That was one of the reasons that propelled your book, Gaslighting America, the fact that you got kind of...
Gaslit?
Gaslit.
Yes, that was the reason for the title.
Tell us this story, and then we can move on, but it's fascinating.
I laugh because I can't cry or break something nearby. I write about it in the book. I was gaslit on live television during the Republican primary. Before I started working for CNN, I was a senior staffer to Ted Cruz, working as a speechwriter and communications advisor on the campaign. Worked in both the Senate and the campaign. Left the campaign because they were moving people down to the Texas headquarters. I had 2 very small children at the time. I couldn't move to Texas. I didn't want to sit in the Senate and just work a desk job while everything else fun was happening. And so I left to pursue my career again in the media, which is what I was doing before I went to Capitol Hill and worked for Jim DeMint and Ted Cruz for 5 years. So fast forward to the Republican primary in that spring when it's very clear that Ted Cruz is making a good gambit for the nomination, running number 2 in many states to Trump. And then out of nowhere, there's this crazy story in the National Enquirer with a blurred out picture of me on the cover alleging that Ted Cruz had an affair with 5 women. And
wait a minute. The National Enquirer never lies.
Oh, and now we know so much more about how close the National Enquirer is to Donald Trump. Right? Like, we could suspect
we knew it then that they were, he was buddies, and there was a lot of...
And so it was very tricky how they did it. They never came out and said Amanda Carpenter and Ted Cruz, but they used my blurred out image on the cover. And so this set off a firestorm in the internet, like, who are these women? And like, if you Google my picture comes up of Amanda Carpenter from a Roll Call story working in the Senate. So it was like, it wasn't hard for people to put together. I was never named in the story, but I was very clearly implicated. Roger Stone was quoted in the story saying, well, I don't know if this is true, but this would really hurt Cruz with evangelicals, which was the whole point to this rumor, right? Because that was
little did we know that nothing could hurt you with evangelicals if you're a Republican.
So just to be clear, it never happened, never came close to happening. I have a very strong marriage, would never even think about this happening.
And to be fair, so does he.
Yeah. I mean, the
Cruz
whole thing
has a
is
very
just
strong
ridiculous. Ridiculous. And so it probably wouldn't have maybe went anywhere except for the fact I was working for CNN. And the story came out, I had to talk to all my supervisors at CNN, get grilled by them, have to go through my calendar of like, okay, was there ever a time this could have been true? Like, I had to imagine how it could be true, even though it wasn't, to figure out how to defend myself.
Sorry, you mean your bosses wanted you to?
They took it seriously?
No, I had to do it for myself. They had to ask. Everybody was you don't understand. It was a witch hunt, to borrow one of Donald Trump's favorite terms, to figure out how I could be taken down. I mean, it wasn't about me. It was about hurting Cruz's campaign, but it was about my family and my marriage. People were calling my husband from, his friends from high school saying, hey, buddy, if you ever need to talk, it might be a tough time for you. God. I had to talk to his parents, my in-laws, and say, this is coming. Everybody was asked, so yeah, it's funny, it wasn't true, but I had to act like it was true to talk and have conversations to explain that it never could be real.
Yeah.
Like, I never traveled with, all these, just outrageous. And so that was being gaslit. But the grand finale was when I going to work, doing my job, because I'm not going to not do my job because these jerks started a rumor about me in National Enquirer. Like, that's the whole point. I'm an effective communicator at TV. They wanted me off TV. Like, that was obvious. And so I go for a segment, and they book this random Trump surrogate because you get very random people who want to defend him on TV. And we're just talking about, I don't even remember what the normal subject was, campaign stuff. And this woman says, well, you were named, Amanda, in the National Enquirer for having an affair with Ted Cruz. What do you have to say for yourself? And so I had to launch into it and say, this is tabloid trash. It's not true. Live television. And then the Cruz campaign had to put out a statement because it happened on live TV. The Trump campaign had put out a statement saying, oh, well, we hope it's not true, but it'd be terrible if it was. And remember, Ted Cruz is a liar. Lying Ted.
Oh, boy. Did you feel
so
that
forever yeah.
I mean, sorry if this is a naive question, but do you know it was planted by the Trump campaign or Roger Stone, I guess?
He was quoted in it. I mean, I have plenty of circumstantial evidence. I have people who have talked to me with things I probably can't say that give me all the assurance that his campaign was absolutely pushing it, saying you need to cover this, you need to look at this, you need to go find her, you need to ask her, da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it was very real.
And so you got, so
yeah, Gaslighting America, I lived through it.
And did that skew, did you have a positive? I guess what I'm asking is, did this skew your
No, it opened my eyes
to
how Trump operates. Lots of people are saying he gets other people to say things and push conspiracies that he wants out there. He smears people. He traps people into a narrative that is not true, but yet you still have to fight your way out of. And then just by putting people on such defensive, he wins in some way, right? Because he says such outrageous things, and apply this to any situation you want. He gets people to talk about it. I mean, a sex scandal, what's the most salacious thing in Washington you can come up with? A sex scandal. Everybody will talk about it. Everybody will cover it. Everybody will be looking at you, even if it's not true.
Well, except for his own, right? Like he seems to survive them. But
I'm curious about the evangelical support, and I couldn't understand it for a while, but then I read a couple of articles that helped me sort of grasp what's going on. And what they say is that for many evangelicals, there was a time where they were sort of players and they thought they could use politics and get their agenda through and now they've sort of given up and they moved to another mode, which is just protecting their way of life. As the country becomes more secular, more religious intolerant, they see that there may come a time where, their churches won't be tax deductible, or they won't be able to run their schools, or, there'll be all sorts of constraints on what they can do. They're afraid they're going to be forced by the government to do things that go against their faith. And these would, we can imagine, we see these things happening and these battles brewing now between, you're a fundamentalist Christian or a religious Catholic, and you don't believe in gay marriage or gay adoption, and your charities then are at risk. And for Christian fundamentalists, their schools and so forth. And so they say that they thought that you had to have just some ornery guy who could stand up to these powers, that the secular powers, the intolerant left, let's say. You had to stand up to them, and that's why they support him.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think this was part of the break. Like my former boss, Ted Cruz, we would go to all these faith and freedom events and all these speeches because the whole point was to try to convince people, I talk your language, I care about the same things as you, I have the same values. But they didn't want that on one level. They wanted somebody who would just be their bully and just fight for them because they felt under attack so much. It wasn't enough to have someone like you in the pew next to you. They wanted someone to go fight the left as hard as they felt the left was fighting them. And that's a calculation with Trump.
So, I think it's a better explanation than just saying, oh, well, they're all racist or they're all...
Right.
That didn't make sense to me. And people, there is racism in all communities, but I don't think it's distinctive in that community. So I was interested in hearing...
But Amanda makes that good point, because Ted Cruz, I watched him speak to a hall of Jewish Republicans. He was... very good on those religious issues. I saw him sit with people and talk about going to their house at Passover. I mean, he's a politician. I'm not going to say it was sincere, but certainly he seemed sincere and certainly to understand religious issues.
Yes, he cared deeply about understanding where everybody came from.
I'm fascinated by this leap then. Like,
no, but didn't they support him, though? Didn't he have
won Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this idea that you need more than someone who is sympathetic, this need for this, as you say, bullying character who will take on the forces of the left that you feel under threat from. And that's true of women, too, that was the other thing. I mean, this man with his track record with women where he seemingly sees them as wives or sex objects kind of thing, or mother hens in the office who will be very competent. He always praises his secretaries and things, but very few women, in positions of actual power, department heads, but secretaries. But
what do we call Kristen Nielsen? Sweetheart and honey?
Yeah, sweetheart,
Just
honey.
shoot him down, sweetheart.
But so I'm going back to your subtitle of this book, Why We Love It When Trump Lies to Us. Do we love it, and do women love it? I mean, let's look at why conservative women want this bully boy, seemingly sex.
Well, what we've said, maybe they think of him not as a spiritual leader they identify with. They think of him as a general who's fighting a battle. They don't agree with his morals, but most people don't care about the morals of a general if you think, he's going to win. So that's the calculation. I mean, that's the best argument that I could find.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I have the subtitle, We Love It When Trump Lies, because it does apply to many different segments of people. His base loves it because it helps him win at all costs, right? You lie about your opponents, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Ted Cruz, whatever, knocks him off kilter. They don't know how to play that. Nobody knows how to play this game when someone so shamelessly and belligerently lies all the time. We don't have the coping mechanisms to really keep up with it. It's hard for us as human beings to process because instinctively we don't expect people to lie to us all the time.
Right.
But what his base likes is because it's this constant chaos that's created, especially when he fights the media with these lies, right? Because there's a lot of conservatives that believe the media is biased. And so he just dives headlong in and creates these lies and these narratives. And the media loves it because there's always something to cover. I mean, as much as we, me as a CNN person and media figure complain about the lies, we can't turn away from it.
But doesn't that help him? The media's fixate on him. I mean, I think the media elected him last time because he was constantly on television.
Yeah, it's an abusive relationship in many respects. I mean, the whole gaslighting thing is really a chauvinistic tactic used against women. And I think it fits Trump perfectly because you are constantly assaulting people with lies. You can hate it but still love it because it gives you something to cover. You can love it because it's defeating your enemies. I mean, pick your poison. Mm-hmm. We are thriving on it on some level right now.
Do you think he's going to win again?
It depends on who the opponent is. I mean, it goes back to the old Paul Ryan binary choice.
Well, also,
right?
I mean, the recent events of what is happening now, I think does sort of change it a little. But without getting into the politics, I want to go back to sort of conservatism and women. Even more broadly, I mean, you've been a conservative.
Since college, at least, once I started thinking about politics.
Right. And what drew you to conservatism?
The cost of college tuition. I put myself largely through college after I blew up my shoulder and lost my athletic scholarship. And so finding out about the real price of college tuition, trying to navigate that process without a family to help you, going through the red tape of bureaucracy without getting any explanations why things were the way they were.
Why did you blame that on Republicans? I mean, on Democrats. Why did you blame Democrats?
Because there was this lie that, there's all this financial aid available if you don't have any money. No. Financial aid in the form of getting other people to sign loans for you. If you don't have someone to do that for you, there's no way. I mean, it's very difficult for a person to earn their way through college. I was on the college debate team, working jobs. I missed so much class because I was working jobs and doing debate team. It's amazing I graduated. But yeah, that was part of my evolution, just trying to fight that bureaucracy and just watching the school blow tens and 20s and 30s, thousands of dollars on speaking fees. It just seemed outrageous to me. There was no option for just a Spartan do-it-yourself college experience. And so that was the beginning of my political evolution.
And then what carried you along? Did you find the conservative movement hospitable to women?
It wasn't something, it's honestly not something I thought about until Trump, because I felt like it was.
Because you were at human events.
Mm-hmm.
You were at
I thought it was
town hall.
Yes. Because of the price of college tuition, I wanted to write about it. Got the door slammed in my face because I wasn't a journalism student. I was a communications student. So I eventually found my way to the Leadership Institute to start writing about it myself and starting my own digital paper, which was just me because I couldn't get anybody to join me. Even the college Republicans thought I was too controversial in writing about what teachers were making. So scary. So then I moved out to Washington after I graduated and never went back. So that was how I came here. I got my first job at Human Events. And yes, I thought everything was very welcoming. I mean, I never even thought about sexism among conservatives in the Republican Party until Trump. And that's a true statement. And now I watch all these people, even like my former boss, I defended saying, of course, the Republican Party isn't sexist. I've never seen it. I've never experienced it. And then Access Hollywood came out. And it's like, all you men I defended, where are you defending women now? Mm-hmm. Nowhere. So yeah, this is a new feeling for me.
Were you surprised when your former boss Ted Cruz came around to Trump?
Yep. I mean,
especially
you don't blow up
remarks he made about
vote your conscience,
his and his wife.
Yeah, I know.
And his father. Didn't he accuse Cruz's father
of the second National Enquirer story?
Part of the Kennedy assassination.
But remember, he made that hideous. He retweeted that hideous meme comparing Melania to Heidi Cruz, and
it's so stupid and mean and sexist. I mean, it's just it's what it is.
He's such a bully and such a child.
I mean, I understand what Cruz. He has to represent Texans, and Texans are going to be upset if they feel like he's holding a grudge and doesn't want to work with the president. Logically, I understand all this. Emotionally, WTF.
But in those areas of human events, politics, so you never felt. And did you? What was your reaction to that sense of? Certainly, when I was much more with the conservative movement and writing for more conservative publications, you did have that feeling that the culture was against you, that there was bias in the media. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that at the time, or have things just changed?
I mean, sometimes, but I've always been a strong proponent. If you are conservative and you believe in what you're saying, you can go anywhere. Mm-hmm. I work at CNN. I have never felt uncomfortable, even when I was, defending Ted Cruz before I, have to talk so much about Trump. I just, I think, yes, there's part of it's true, but it's much more a marketing gimmick to keep people committed to shows like the Rush Limbaugh Show and Fox News than anything else, right? Like, it's a constant tirade of these mega successful networks telling their viewers and listeners that they are the victim and you can't trust anybody else to keep them on those stations. It's a marketing tactic more than anything in my eyes at this point.
Right, but even the women like on Fox, they're all, I like looking at those old pictures of Megyn Kelly when she was at Fox. She looks like a cocktail waitress. Like, she's such a serious woman and a good reporter and was awesome at the debates. And then you got trashed in that very sexist way by Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah. His war on Fox News was getting dissenting voices. Because she dared ask him about what he said about women. Right.
So she's dolled up like this cocktail waitress. But all of their headliners until Laura Ingraham joined, like, she's the only sort of woman headliner, as it were, in the evening. But there's never been a lot of room, it seems, for women in those more important roles, in that
there
world.
Always seems to be one at the table.
Right.
Well, the Democrats have made much more of an effort to recruit women candidates, and I think that's a huge mistake, the conservative movement. And I've seen it as someone outside. You used to be inside the conservative movement, in both of you, and I've always been an outsider, and have never understood it because there's a major force on the left, which are all of these think tanks and institutes and departments that, in the universities that are doing cultural studies and research, promoting a very leftist point of view. And these are resources that the Democrats, well, they used to be resources that they would draw from. Now they're sort of calling the shots. Mm-hmm. And as the Democratic Party becomes more left and more progressive, at least the base. But so then, as a disaffected Democrat, I would speak to conservative groups, and they just were even groups of senators and congressmen who were clueless about women's issues and just had never thought about them, had no position, and were completely unprepared and made so many mistakes.
Christina, you and I go way back, Amanda, that when I first started writing about these issues, we were writing similar themes. You Stole Feminism, my book, What Our Mothers Didn't Tell Us. And we were very embraced for this message that the feminist movement of the time was not representing women.
And I was writing as a liberal feminist, and I thought
that writing the same way as I was conservative politically, but I was like a modern woman. I wanted everything that the feminists purported to want for us. But there was just not a lot of room for men or children or families or all of these alternatives.
Right.
But looking back on it, and so I felt we were embraced by publications like the Weekly Standard and things that were then Wall Street Journal. But we were embraced for the message, but I just felt we weren't ultimately as promoted, as encouraged, as we might have been, as our counterparts on the left were, that we were very useful to trot out in television debates and write these pieces, but were we hired or promoted beyond that? I always felt that there was...
I didn't feel that so much, but what I felt is there was no institutional basis among conservatives on these cultural issues and these women's issues. Right. There weren't the think tanks that were focused. There are dozens of women's institutes and hundreds of women's studies departments, churning out policy papers on the wage gap and on, just tax reform and things that are focused on progressive policies. But what did the conservative movement do to counter that and to come up with something?
It was a male tree fort, I felt.
Yeah.
And girls were allowed, like, ooh, girls, but you could come in, let one or two in.
And you can do, and they were like the women's issues, and okay, we'll get you to handle that.
You can do the women's issues, but so I'm heartened to hear that you didn't feel that so much coming out
the conservative media when I was much younger, and then I went to the Hill, and now so I will say I was in a position where I wouldn't be able to be promoted because I was like 22 and 23.
Right.
And so, looking back, it was all dominant male leadership. I can't think of a single female editor I ever had.
Right. And now it's like it's gone back much worse than even in the 90s. Like suddenly this party of old white men. Mm-hmm. I mean, I used to bother me when people would say that.
No, it's true.
But it's so true.
No, and it's the problem is that the right instinctively does not believe in gender or race identity issues. Right? Like we're taught to resist that because it shouldn't matter and don't pay attention to it. And the left plays politics with it. And that's not fair. And we don't do that. Mm-hmm. But we do need to pay attention to race and gender issues because there are problems. And it doesn't mean you're not a conservative if you don't care about them. I mean, I see people who are pro-life making ridiculous mistakes about talking about abortion all the time. And I see it creates so much.
What would be the ridiculous mistake?
Oh, gosh. I have a friend who used to write for Politico. She recently wrote a letter to Kevin McCarthy because she was pregnant. I'm trying to remember all the details of this exactly right. At 22 weeks, she went to the hospital. Baby was not going to live. Oh, she had to deliver it. And the baby ended up passing away very shortly after life. Doctor said, there's nothing we can do. I'm going to cry. And so she had to deal with that. And then after she's listening to Republicans talk about infanticide and all this, and she's saying, you're saying I killed my baby. And she didn't. She wanted that baby so badly. And that's what she hears when we talk about this abortion debate. Right. And I had to tell her, you didn't do that. Just because your baby died in the hospital, but then you listen to Donald Trump and the campaign trail. They want to kill your baby. You go to the hospital. That's what I'm talking about. And so when women hear stuff like that, I mean, I'm crying right now just because my heart breaks for her, not only having to go through that, but then having to hear people talk about that and mischaracterize it.
Right.
So pay attention to that.
And they can sound so indifferent and uncaring when they might not be if they were a little more aware and if they had people that could work out policies, because you need to have, even though the word is, it's been appropriated by the left, but progressive can also be, there's conservative progressivism. There's a Burkean approach to social policy.
I would settle for people just not being assholes. I know you're very educated. I'm not. I should have went to more of those classes.
Well, you went to the debating club. That served you well.
I did. But just, how can you not care when you talk about that stuff? The way, it matters. And it matters to smart people, and it matters to women.
Well, but again, I like a lot of libertarian policies, for example. Mm-hmm. And I was very happy to find Deirdre McCloskey, who's an economist, and she calls herself a bleeding heart libertarian and a motherly libertarian. And she's able to explain these policies that are about, small government and so forth, and not, leaving a lot to civil society and to individuals. But she does it in a way that's very compassionate, and she makes it all feel like if you are supporting these libertarian policies, you're on the side of human beings. And I listened to her and I just thought, I'd never heard these ideas explained that way by conservatives before. I mean, she's libertarian, but it's a little different. But even libertarians, and I've just wondered, why aren't there more voices like that? And they've made no effort. The parties made no effort to
because I will
diversity.
Think back to the media critique. It's gotten so easy, right, for people just to go on Fox News and go through the conservative media network and not have to talk to people who aren't already in line with you. I think that's ultimately really damaging because they're not trying to find new ways to communicate their ideas in empathetic ways that relate to their everyday life. It's just knee-jerk socialism. I mean, the dominant analysis of any criticism to Donald Trump right now is, well, it's a hysterical left that's been trying to overturn the election because they hate Trump. I mean, that is like all you hear. Right? Like, we don't get anywhere to anything.
But to be fair, in many on the left will just say, oh, well, this is just about white supremacy. They're just supporting Trump because of white supremacy. And I don't think that's anywhere either. That's the oversimplification and demonization of each side. And, of course, I don't think he helps.
No, but it's funny. When I talk among my liberal counterparts at CNN, they always say, why is there no Emily's List on the right? Like, we're always waiting for that to happen.
Well, there is one.
Okay.
And they are working, but they say the same thing, which is they hit this wall of non-interest from the party. And so they're recruiting women, and this is like maybe as hard a time as it could possibly be to recruit impressive women candidates for Republicanism. And Christina, you made the point, we were talking in here earlier before we started, that one of conservatism's failures is to provide an alternative to feminism, or maybe a conservative answer to feminism.
Well, a moderate feminism, and which is where most women are in the country and even around the world, and not to have proponents of that in the party. That would mean they would have to be paying attention to these issues, listening to what the left is saying, because the feminist left is powerful in the Democratic Party. And what do conservatives have? They just get into a mess when they talk about any women's issues. And
that's a good question. So what would a conservative feminism answer look like? What do you think it should be preaching?
To me, it'd be home and family oriented, right? I mean, the issues that families generally care about, healthcare, education. People say environment, but I like the concept of stewardship much better, taking care of what you have, your parks, your lakes, whatever. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican.
Yeah, well, Roger Scruton has written a book on conservative environmentalism. And that's the idea of care, nurture, and community. But he does it as a conservative. All of these issues there could be an intelligent conversation.
There could be an intelligent conversation, too, on childcare and helping working women with childcare. And unfortunately, we never get to talk about that because it's always in this, well, that's just socialism, or people can't afford to do that. Or it's an elite thing, like just professional women who want to go pursue their careers need it.
I tell you, the resistance I found, though, in conservative circles is the idea, well, children just shouldn't be in childcare.
Right.
Well, that would be ultra-conservative. You wouldn't hear that from the average.
That's dominant there.
Really?
And it's like, well, okay, well, what are you doing to support men so they make incomes to do this? Like, it's just not even an option.
Or you could say, like, what are things we can do to help women? As we know, and it remains true, that women, when they have children, they don't necessarily want to go back working full time. And they don't necessarily want to put their children in, 12-hour daycare center, their babies. So, but then that's where the argument stops, and we don't go beyond that and look at systems and incentives and corporate
I will
solutions.
Think to make any headway in the Republican Party, it has to be branded as family care, because too many people tune out once you say women's issues and children. They just, nope, that doesn't have anything to do with me. But I do think now, the millennial generation, where you have two-income families and the man wants paternity leave, right? So get him involved right away. And this isn't childcare as a women's issue anymore. It's a family issue.
Well, look, and a lot of single mothers, right? You don't have that option.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so how do you help them, especially in a workforce? I mean, what is so bizarre about this Trump administration is it's like sentiment or sentimentality for the era where the sort of man went to the coal mine and
Can I tell you,
that was an honest...
I live in West Virginia. There's dignity in that work. Everybody respects the people that worked in the mines. I don't meet people who want their children to work in coal mines.
No, exactly.
I mean, honest to God, I grew up outside of Flint, Michigan. We love the car industry. We're proud of GM. Yeah. I don't know parents that wanted their sons and daughters to work on the factory line. We need those products, but also I don't know why Republicans don't
it's
embrace technological advances.
Yes, and why should we be training people to do jobs that machines can do? If a machine can do it, maybe people shouldn't be doing it, and
That's
should
healthier
be
and safer and more energy efficient.
but
And then you can
and
be the
more-
programmer.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is it's a kind of nostalgia.
Yes.
For a kind of working class male dominated economy that doesn't acknowledge actually one of my husband David's favorite statistics is that there are more yoga teachers in America than there are coal miners.
Oh, I believe that.
And the foot shooting problem with Republicans is, as you say, it's anything that reeks of quote unquote women's issue.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna. I mean, look, they had 48% of white women, and then even then, that's probably going to be older women, the non-college educated. I mean, what is it going to take to have almost no women voting for you?
Oh gosh,
will that?
They're going to have to get voted out. I mean, that's just
Women are now about 60% of the electorate.
They can change the election. They will have a huge influence on whether Donald Trump gets elected again or not.
Yes, absolutely. I think and this is something I've been focusing in on, it's the suburban women who will decide the next election.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially they decided it for Trump by 2 points.
Right.
And I feel like this is a huge problem because, as you point out, Trump's Republican Party is highly chauvinistic and resistant to even catering to those issues. And what do you think the left is going to do to court Republican suburban women? Nothing. They're not going to do anything.
No, and they can go further and further to the left.
So what are these women going to do? I mean, it's a
well.
huge
What's the country
jump
going
ball.
to do? Because this polarization it's extreme. Both parties have become more extreme, and there's no one.
But
those women are
representing.
being ignored.
Yeah,
and I don't know what'll happen.
So to go back to maybe my original question of, so what do conservative women want? Like, why?
Stability. Can I just, in one word, stability.
And why
financial, economic, everything. Just safety and stability. It's what I want from my government. I don't want to think about my government all the time.
I know.
It's so annoying.
And everyone's thinking about politics all the time. I don't want it in my mind all the time.
But then
do yoga.
Yeah. But then why? It's also sort of not fair that the yoga teachers of the world aren't as valid in their political opinions get
maybe they need
sought
to
out by
unionize.
CNN for their opinion as coal miners and diner dwellers. But what do you? Why do you think conservative women even today still stick by Donald Trump? Is it just because of what you say, that they like the bully in him?
No, because, people are people regardless of Trump. I mean, if you're just a regular voter and you want low taxes and you want a strong military and maybe you send your kids to private school, you're a Republican. You were a Republican before Trump. You're going to be a Republican after Trump.
So it's just tribal.
I don't know if it's tribal,
Not
but
tribal,
my
but
values are the same. My values are not dependent on who is in office. I didn't vote for Trump because, too much happened. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So I left the top blank. But I think there's a difference between people who maybe have to work in television or write about politics, who have to professionally put their reputation on the line. That makes the calculation different. But if you're just a regular voter and he generally supports the things I like, then yeah, you're going to pull the lever for him, especially when it's against maybe Hillary Clinton, who you've hated for the past 2 decades.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask you about the Kavanaugh hearing and what went on with that. Did you have strong views on?
Oh,
yes, because it's almost exactly, maybe it is exactly a year, more than exactly a year.
It was a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, that was just such a show. I mean, her friends didn't corroborate the story. That's kind
even
of
her father apparently hasn't cooperated. Her father.
If you were going to take somebody down for this, I need more to go on.
And there was no evidence.
So you found yourself on that siding with Brett Kavanaugh?
I don't know if I side with how he acted
right
during the hearing, but if I were a U.S. senator, I would have voted for him.
And what do you think, aside from, let's say the incident was true, or hard to establish, but this idea that what you did
I'm
back as a 17-year-old boy.
Yeah, generically, I don't think there was enough evidence to prove that he did that. Although he ran with a wild crowd, clearly nothing like the crowd I grew up with. These
But let's
kids
say he did
went
it.
to
Let's say he did
if he did it,
would it be valid?
yeah, because I think there's 16, 17-year-old kids that go to jail and have their lives ruined for doing stuff like that. So yeah, if he did that and he had been arrested, he would have never been a Supreme Court judge. So yeah, that would have mattered.
So it was just the credibility
If he raped
issue.
somebody, I mean, it still is like what happened, even if it did happen. There's just too many questions about it.
Right.
But yes, if he had raped somebody when he was in high school, yeah, that's disqualifying. Absolutely.
Disqualifying. But he was accused of this, and there's been no corroboration. And so it's metaphysically impossible to know. And what I thought was interesting, there have been books now from conservative and then more liberal women. And even the liberal women, you can see that they are kind of amazed that his record has been impeccable since college.
Yeah, and that's what did it for me. Usually there's a pattern of behavior.
There's a pattern.
There's got to be real-time corroboration for me, a pattern of behavior, and somebody willing to go on record. Like for sexual assault, whenever this happens, we have to talk about it. Those are the three things I look for before saying, okay, he did it, he's canceled.
Okay, so just what we're saying here is an example. If we talk about a conservative feminism or a moderate feminism, we could be pushing those issues that way, that not to go all the way with, believe all women, trust women, because...
Yeah, I mean, I'll listen to, if somebody's got a story to tell and they want to be listened to,
listen to them, yes, and treat them with dignity, but you can't automatically believe anybody because they're human and humans get things wrong. and that would be to just, take away due process altogether.
Although I do think he lied about never getting blackout drunk. I just don't believe that one.
I think actually, to your point, Amanda,
that was like
whether
do we know that he blacked out?
Oh, I think there is enough.
Who blacks out? Do you black out from beer?
Yeah, you black out from enough.
You drink enough of anything.
No, but
Yeah.
I agree with you.
That's brain
Let's
damage,
say
I
I
don't know.
believed he did it, and as described, it's more to me what was that he was clearly a wild guy, and a lot of 17-year-old boys. I mean, my 17-year-old daughter will say, they're horrible, they're gross, they have no way, they have no...
shout.
This was like, it opened my eyes to a very privileged way of life for kids that grow up in, the Tony suburbs of D.C.
And let me tell you, the girls were just as wild.
But the point was the truth. That was what disturbed me, that whether this happened or not, his honesty about, if he had just said, yeah, I drank a lot. I probably drank
Well,
too
he
much.
said I like beer.
He did.
That's not I like.
I know.
It's the
He
same.
did.
He didn't.
I know.
He really
When we
didn't.
went after Amy Klobuchar, like another like sort of woman's moment, saying, "Do you ever get blackout drunk?" When her dad was an alcoholic who she turned in to the cops for being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Like, come on, have some tact.
He
dude.
could have just said, yeah, I did a lot of things, heavy drinking that I regret.
Yeah, but I know I never did that.
I know I never did that. Anyway, but that was, okay, last question, because now we have to go and we're getting to the end of our time, but this is my most pressing question for Amanda.
Sounds intense.
Why the facial hair on Ted Cruz?
Oh, I don't know.
I know you're not intimate with him that way.
No.
But
No.
why has he grown a beard? Do we know?
I don't know. Try
like
new
it?
look.
It looks pretty good.
I mean, women change their hair all the time.
Yeah.
I have a theory about women and hair. Have I ever told you my theory? That when a woman is going through a big change of life, or it could be anything. It could be like changing jobs or having a child or getting ready to get married. She'll do something to her hair. She expresses it through her hair. So depending on the change of life, it could be drastic. It could be a perm. It could be going from long to short hair. And if it's milder, it's just like maybe a different color, a different tint. I have this theory about men and facial hair, that his decision to go from clean shaven to full beard, I wonder, I'm trying to think of, is there a male equivalent to this? Is there a...
That's when
Paul Ryan would do the beard. That was like during hunting season, though.
He grew a beard when he left. Maybe it's...
Yeah.
Did you ever cut your hair really short?
Oh, I used to cut it really short. It was a bad idea. I had a perm at one point. in school. Those were the days I was like really, really pole skinny when I was like 12 or 13. Then I got a perm because it was the 70s, and my nickname became Q-tip.
I've heard a theory about women that I actually think is true, is that when you kind of find your look, you find your look whenever you're happiest in life. And then even though you might change it later, you always go back to it because that's like when you were happiest. So like some women, they start wearing like really wild makeup, you know, even to the old age, they have like the blue makeup.
Yeah.
They were happiest when that was in style.
Right.
Or I have another theory. Your look is sort of what you did in, when you were 13 or 14 and learning how to put on makeup. You kind of stick to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That explains your blue eyeshadow.
No blue eyeshadow. But I did have those aggressive bangs for years.
Yes, so we both did. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
But that was because I blame Linda Evangelista for that.
Yeah.
Oh, the really heavy bang?
Yeah.
Those are cute.
But not on everyone.
Yeah, well, those models, I mean, they can do anything. That's what's so annoying. It's like, oh, that might be cute on me. No, because I'm not a model.
But I always think if women cut their hair really short, and I'm not going to say it.
You have to be really good looking.
You have to be really good looking or French, or you're just saying,
facial structure.
I give up, no more sex.
Like, who was the actress who shaved her head and she still looked gorgeous? Like,
she still, the one that shaved her head and burnt
a number of them
picture of the Pope.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, okay, so you have no explanation for this?
No, I don't. That was after I wasn't in the office. Sorry.
Hoping you would crack the. Maybe men, like, it's a heavy beard. And I know they're, looking like somebody, a reenactor from the Revolution is fashionable right now with those huge beards. But he's gone sort of Orthodox Jewish on the heaviness of his beard, I feel. And maybe he's
going to have payas.
Maybe he's moving to converting, or do men hide behind their facial hair? Maybe he's this like sign he's lying low. Anyway, well, we'll have to get on a beard reader to
maybe you'll have your first male guest to explain that.
Oh, we've had mansplainers.
We've had mansplainers. We welcome mansplainers. But yeah, okay. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for stopping by.
All right, thank you.
Really love having you. I am fascinated now by this idea that we talked about with Amanda about I didn't want to call it a conservative answer to feminism, but...
Well, it would be feminism, but it just wouldn't be... we just get such extreme forms, and now it seems to be so common to hear this, anger at men, and no one moderates, and no one...
Well, and also no real policy thinking. I mean, that's the other thing, is the kind of absence... maybe this is true on the left as well. In any kind of serious policy making around families that kind of breaks the mold of what we've been talking about and arguing over for 20 years.
Well, I've thought this for years, because if you look at data on women's preferences and men's preferences, what you find is that there's 20% of women want, even if they have children, they want to work full time. Ambitious careerists. About 20% of women want to be stay-at-home moms, and then 60% are in the middle. They want to work, but then when they have children, when they're young, they pull back. They're called adaptives. And very good research on this. The Pew Research Institute, we've had
this forever, though. We've talked about this.
We've talked about this, but where is the women? So the women's movement is sort of behind the full-time workers, and they do propose policies to make that possible. And where are the policies that they do have in Scandinavia and most of Europe, Western Europe, to help women that want to work part-time or want to stay home?
Or are going to face, like, one of the biggest employers in America of women is retail, and those jobs are very much threatened by, the internet and online shopping, in the way that coal miners, are. And you just see nothing about that. Nobody talking about that. And
there is one person, but I'm not going to say his name.
Elizabeth Warren? No.
Andrew Yang.
Yeah, he is good. Yeah, I want him to be the Secretary of Labor, I think. I think that would be amazing. But I didn't want to bring it up, Christina, but there was this video of you that was kind of making fun of
A
you
parody
and us, really.
video.
It was a parody video. It was funny, but here I was going to defend you on this. It's a parody video, and I'm not even going to. First, I don't remember who made it, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you guys because I don't want you to find it. But it was sort of this woman like Christina holding a martini glass. Hey, you don't drink martini.
I don't drink martini.
But anyway, you were holding a martini glass, or this character was, and it was sort of based on the factual feminists. If factual feminists married the femsplainers because of the drinking.
Yeah.
And it was sort of you saying, like, we don't need this big movement, women's movement, because no rights human rights in history have been achieved by big movements. And of course, then they have the video footage of all the big, human rights movements in the history.
By extreme, no extreme,
black rights
activism
and everything
has ever helped anyone.
Right, except that we are at the point where the problems we've cleared the big obstacles.
I know they're pretending like they're the revolutionary vanguard, and we need we don't need a revolutionary vanguard. We've got the vote.
and the problems we have are very tricky. Yeah. They're subtle. They're important, and they require real policy thinking in new ways that affect real women. And we can't talk about these because we're all being apparently raped in our workforce. It's not to belittle those things, but
they've exaggerated.
It's not the only thing that's going on in women's lives.
But there should be organizations, there should be intellectuals, academics, researchers that support policies that are sensible and reasonable and attractive to mainstream women.
Right.
And we don't have that. And increasingly, the right is silent about it or oppositional to anything.
Right.
And the left is just too carried away with gender warrior politics. So.
Well, anyway, that was interesting. Obviously, we'll return to this. Maybe you and I will just build this new movement together. Christina looks tired.
I'm too tired for a movement.
You don't have your Kir Royale. This La Croix is bringing us down.
Oh, they made fun of our Kir Royale.
Yeah. And you're like now low energy, like Jeb Bush.
I'm low energy.
Anyway, let's wrap this up. Ella. Any listener reaction we should get to this week?
Yes, we have a ton. So from Rose, this is in response to our episode with Candace Bushnell. And she is responding to Candace saying that when she got divorced, a lot of young men started hitting on her. She said, the same thing happened to me after my husband died. Suddenly younger men were hitting on me. I found it very creepy. They reminded me of my son. What's creepier is now 20 years later, my new husband will soon be 70. When did I start sleeping with an old man?
Good one, Rose. You haven't found younger men hitting on you? We discussed this after Candace that this.
I don't know. Maybe here and there. Certainly in the YouTube comments.
Oh, okay.
When I make videos, when I was on Bill Maher, the comments. Some of them are quite flattering.
You're still sailing from those comments. All right. Thank you, Rose. Very good.
We have more listener reaction from Michael, who says, your recent podcast has made me aware that I am a hopeless perpetrator of benevolent sexism. Whether it's opening doors or lifting bags to an overhead compartment, my whole life is one long, disgusting maintenance of the patriarchy. What's worse is that these dastardly Southern women are complicit in my sexism. They actually seem to enjoy it, the fiends. I was surprised to hear your most recent guest complain about working in a male-dominated industry. I'm a nurse anesthesiast and work with a mostly female cohort, and to a person, they all prefer to work with men, or they tell me that at any rate. Could it be that people just find things to complain about at work?
Well, they like working with him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to work with him.
He says, I'm a huge fan of the show. I love to hear a feminist take on issues serious and not. I also love your particular brand of feminism, i.e. the kind of feminism that still loves men.
Yes. We're feminists who like men. That's what we need, a movement that represents
the movement.
them.
That's part of the movement, for sure. All right. Well, we'll keep working on our policies that like men.
And then Daniel says, good afternoon, ladies. I had the good fortune to see Christina on HBO with Bill Maher. Christina talked about the kinds of things and the way of thinking that I have worked hard to teach my daughter. I have been appalled at how hard it has been to raise a a super strong, strong-willed daughter in the face of a new feminism that wants her to live as a victim. I want her to be free to live as she wants and achieve her desires and to be able to care for herself in a tough world. And I've often felt that I'm in competition with a narrative that wants her to live afraid.
Well, I agree with him. She's lucky to have a father that's aware. A lot of parents aren't aware that their daughters are learning this, narrative of fragility and just, what I've called fainting couch feminism, that we're just these fragile little birds in need of protection, and, from the all of the men in our lives. And overall, the world, as I always say, has there ever been a time where women had more freedom, opportunities, and safety, relative safety of an American woman compared to many other places is just not comparable, and many times in history. It's not perfect. That doesn't mean we don't keep improving. But at a time where we've made these major, major steps, they turn around and try to tell young women that they're in danger.
Also to Danielle's point, your daughter's going to be strong, I think not least because she has a strong father figure, a strong, supportive father in her life. And that's, I think, key to helping women be strong and have these role models, these male role models in their lives that aren't,
Yeah, it's important what you say.
Scary.
Male role models are important, as well as female role models. And too often the feminist movement acts like if you're reading a book that isn't about a girl, if you're reading a thinker who's not a female, then you're not seeing yourself in the book. You don't have to see yourself in the book to identify with the person and stand on their shoulders and see the world. It could be a man or a woman. I don't like this idea that you have to identify. It has to be a reflection of who you are. And so much of the effort in sort of educational feminism is around girls seeing themselves. No, girls should identify with the great people who've come before them, men or women, and not to pretend like it just has to be this world of women. We can, any men, are there as intruders.
Right. Well, hang in there, Danielle. Thank you.
And we have a lot of listener reaction this week. Elisa says, so this is in response to Christina being on Bill Maher on HBO.
They're still coming in, Christina.
Yeah.
She said, I'm a woman and I don't have children and I don't find being around children rewarding. And she thought that you were extremely condescending, Christina, when you said women over here in early child education fields they find rewarding or something.
That's what you said, that women should be, or not women should be, but women gravitate towards fields.
I'm not making a judgment. I'm just describing the facts. Overall, there is a tendency for women to enter the caring and helping professions, and men are overrepresented in the people-free zones, as my friend calls them. Just, they're more likely to be the nuclear engineers or to work with machinery, to be car mechanics. You find more men wanting to do that. And it's just the way it is. And we've tried to change preferences. And in these programs, vocational educational programs, there's a lot of effort to get they're called the non-trads, get non-traditional fields for boys and non-traditional fields for girls. They try to mix them up, and it doesn't go very far. They haven't made that many changes in many, many professions. And if you look at who's majoring in engineering and who's majoring in computer science, it's just a lot more males. Females are in education, psychology, well, just about everything else. So I wasn't that I was approving it. I just think maybe at some point we have to say that these are people's preferences. Now, she says, I'm not like that. She says she's the exception. The exception, of course, we're talking about averages. And if you just study statistics, you discover that, she's just talking about averages. No, I'm talking about averages.
Yeah.
She says that she started a data entry job out of college, and a male colleague who started that same month doing the same job with the same college background was paid $5,000 more than her. And she says she doesn't even call herself a feminist because of the oversensitive culture we find ourselves in, but that she thinks you get the pay gap issue wrong.
Well, she's saying that she knows that she works the same hours as you work. You have to, it's possible. I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying is there's no evidence of systemic wage discrimination by employers who they hire, a company hires a man, hires a woman, and then just pays him more for the same work. Usually it's more complicated. He works more hours, or he has a specialty that pays more. Now, when you do those controls and you look at the relevant differences, the wage gap narrows to sometimes, in some studies, it vanishes.
Right.
altogether.
And again, you're talking about averages, and our listener is, or actually the Mar TV watcher is discussing her situation and then saying, therefore, everything you say is wrong because it didn't happen to
her.
me. But I do feel condescended to Christina by you because in my house, guess who wields the power drill? Guess who builds those IKEA bookshelves? Guess who goes and fixes things?
You're like the boss.
No, I'm the handy one. I just want to blow away the stereotype.
Well, I have to say, when my late husband, there would be something that he repaired, and there was nothing he couldn't repair with glue and pipe cleaners. And we'd see him coming, and it would be, he really could do it, but it was a month, it was like a...
I didn't even know what you would fix with a pipe cleaner.
He fixed a muffler. And we once had a house guest. I don't know how we had this guest, but from New Zealand. And his tooth fell out.
And
Fred glued it back in.
And then put pipe cleaner braces around. Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you, you guys. Yeah, so don't forget, if you want to come to Nashville or are in Nashville, we will be there the weekend of the 25th, 26th of October for Politicon. So we'll be doing a live podcast from the stage. Also, seriously, $1 a month, guys, keeping this podcast going, $1 a month, if all of you did that, we would never have to have an ad again. And we could do more stuff. We could offer you more bonus podcasts as our listeners on Patreon get every month. They get our secret Last Call podcast. And we just somebody gave us a big, big donation, and he got a free Femsplainers shot glass. So like we used today with Amanda, who had a shot of vodka for her cocktail. But pretty much vodka soda was her thing. But anyway, we appreciate the support of those who do give to us, and go to patreon.com/femsplainers and maybe you'll get a shot.
And go to iTunes and review us. And if you like us, if you don't like us, do not go there.
But anyway, thank you. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Femsplainers. Keep up with us on Twitter and Facebook at Femsplainers and on Instagram at Femsplainers Podcast. Send questions and comments to contact@femsplainers.com.
A big thanks to Ella Ryder, our research and in-studio production assistant, and to Nat Frum, our audio and video editor. And we're proud to be part of the Ricochet Network and grateful to the American Enterprise Institute for allowing us to record in its studio every week in downtown Washington, D.C.
And miss something? You'll find everything you need at our homepage, femsplainers.com, including links to past episodes, our sponsors, where you can sign up to support us, and even to merch. And please don't forget to like us or give us 5 stars on iTunes.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.